She laughed and flew to Miami while I lay in a hospital bed fighting cancer. I thought love meant showing up. Turns out it meant nothing to her. Here's how that moment shattered me and rebuilt my entire life. I guess it started with a pain in my side. It wasn't sharp, just this dull ache that wouldn't go away. I ignored it for a while, weeks, maybe. I had work, deadlines, and I didn't want to be the guy who runs to the doctor every time something feels off. But it got worse. I remember waking up one morning and barely being able to stand. That's when I finally went in. They ran some tests, kept me overnight, and the next day a doctor came in with a clipboard and a look that told me everything before he even opened his mouth. It was cancer. Not the kind they catch early and treat with a few pills. It was advanced. I don't remember the exact words he used, but I remember the way my hands went cold and how I stared at the wall behind him, trying to process what he was saying. I was 34. I had no family nearby. My parents were gone, and my sister lived in Oregon with her kids. I had friends, sure, but not the kind you call when you're in a hospital bed trying to figure out if you're going to die. I had Rachel. We'd been together for almost 2 years. She was beautiful, smart, and had this energy that made people want to be around her. She worked in marketing, traveled a lot, and always had something going on. I wasn't like that. I was quieter, more grounded. I worked in software, spent most of my time at home, and liked things simple. We were different, but it worked, at least I thought it did. I called her from the hospital. Told her what the doctor said. I didn't cry, didn't ask for anything. I just told her. She paused for a second, then said she'd come by later that evening. I waited. I watched the clock. She didn't show. Around 10, I texted her. No reply. The next morning, I called again. She picked up, sounded rushed, said she was packing. I asked if she was coming. That's when she laughed. Not a cruel laugh, just surprised. Like I'd said something ridiculous. Huh, you seriously thought I'd cancel my trip to Miami to hold your hand in the hospital? That's what she said. Word for word. I didn't respond. I just hung up. I stared at the phone for a long time after that. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was numb. I think part of me knew, deep down, that she wasn't built for this. She liked the good parts, the dinners, the vacations, the Instagram posts. She didn't do hospitals or sickness or anything that made life feel heavy. I spent the next few days alone. Nurses came and went. Doctors talked to me about treatment options. I nodded, signed papers, tried to focus. I didn't tell anyone else. I didn't want pity. I didn't want people showing up with flowers and sad eyes. I just wanted to get through it. I started chemo the following week. It was brutal. I lost weight, lost hair, lost any sense of normalcy. I'd sit in the chair for hours, watching the 4 drip into my arm, thinking about how fast everything had changed. Rachel posted pictures from Miami. Beach shots, cocktails, smiling with friends. I didn't block her. I didn't unfollow. Just watched. Not out of spite, more like curiosity. I wanted to see how far she could go without looking back. She didn't call. Not once. Not even a text. I think that hurt more than the diagnosis. Not because I needed her, but because I thought I mattered. I thought we had something real. One night, after a particularly rough round of chemo, I sat in my apartment, alone, exhausted, and barely able to keep food down. I looked around at the place we used to share. Her stuff was gone, of course. She'd moved out a few weeks before the hospital visit, said she needed space. I didn't argue. I thought it was temporary. I thought she'd come back. But now the silence felt permanent. I started writing. Not a journal, not poetry, just thoughts. I'd open a blank document and type whatever came to mind. Sometimes it was about the treatment, sometimes about Rachel, sometimes just random memories. It helped. It gave me something to do, something to hold on to. I didn't care if anyone read it. I just needed to get it out. I remember one entry in particular. I wrote about the time we went to Vermont. It was fall and the leaves were turning. We stayed in a cabin, cooked dinner together, and spent hours talking by the fire. She told me she loved me that night. I believed her. I think she believed it too in that moment. But love, I've learned, isn't just about moments. It's about what you do when things fall apart. I kept going. Treatment dragged on. Some days were better than others. I started walking again, eating more, even laughing sometimes. I made a playlist of songs that reminded me of better times. I watched old movies, read books, tried to stay connected to something outside of myself. I didn't hear from Rachel. Not once. Then, out of nowhere, she showed up. It was a Tuesday. I was sitting in the waiting room, waiting for blood work. She walked in like nothing had happened. Smiling, wearing sunglasses, holding a coffee. I didn't say anything. She sat down next to me, crossed her legs, and said she'd been thinking about me. I nodded. She asked how I was. I told her the truth. She looked uncomfortable, like she didn't know what to say. She said she missed me. Said Miami was fun but not what she expected. I didn't respond. I didn't ask why she was there. I just waited. She talked for a while, about work, about her friends, about how things had changed. Then she said she wanted to try again. Said she'd made a mistake. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I didn't feel anything. No anger, no longing, no hope. Just emptiness. I told her I didn't think that was a good idea. She looked surprised, maybe even hurt. She asked if I was seeing someone. I said no. She asked if I still loved her. I said I didn't know. She left after that. No drama, no tears. Just walked out. I went home and wrote about it. Not to make sense of it, but to mark the moment. To remind myself that I'd survived something, not just the illness, but the disappointment. The realization that some people aren't who you think they are. That love isn't always enough. That sometimes, you have to let go, even when it hurts. And it did hurt. Not because I wanted her back, but because I wanted to believe she'd come back for the right reasons. That she'd sit with me in the hospital, hold my hand, and say, I'm here. But she didn't. And that laugh, that moment when she said, you seriously thought, it stayed with me. Not as a wound, but as a lesson. I kept writing. I kept healing. I kept living. I didn't hear from Rachel again after that day in the waiting room. No texts, no calls, no surprise visits. And I didn't reach out either. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for closure. I had already gotten it, in the silence, in the way she looked at me and realized I wasn't the same man she left. I think she wanted to rewind, to pretend the past few months hadn't happened. But I couldn't. I changed. Not just physically, but mentally. Emotionally. I'd seen what people do when things get hard. I'd learned who stays and who walks away. The treatment continued. I got used to the rhythm of it, the appointments, the side effects, the long stretches of fatigue. I started seeing a therapist. Not because I was falling apart, but because I wanted to understand what had happened. Not just with Rachel, but with myself. Why I'd held on so long. Why I'd ignored the signs. Why I'd believed that love meant loyalty, even when it clearly didn't. He helped. Not in a dramatic way. Just small things. He asked questions I hadn't thought to ask myself. He didn't judge. He didn't push. He just listened. And slowly, I started to let go of the version of my life I thought I was building. The one with Rachel, with the apartment we'd decorated together, with the plans we'd made for vacations and maybe kids someday. I let it all go. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. I started walking more. Just around the neighborhood at first, then farther. I'd put on headphones, listen to music, and let my mind wander. I noticed things I hadn't before. The way the light hit the buildings at sunset, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery on 9th, the sound of kids laughing in the park. I wasn't healed. Not yet. But I was alive. And that mattered. One day, I walked past a bookstore I used to visit with Rachel. We'd go there on Sundays, grab coffee, browse the shelves. I almost kept walking, but something pulled me in. I wandered through the aisles, not looking for anything in particular. Then I saw a book on grief. Not the kind you read after someone dies, but the kind that talks about losing something intangible. A future, a belief, a version of yourself. I bought it. Took it home. Read it in one sitting. It hit me hard. Not because it was sad, but because it was honest. It talked about how people grieve relationships that never really existed. How we project what we want onto someone, and when they fail to live up to it, we feel betrayed, not by them, but by our own expectations. That was Rachel. She never promised to be the person I needed. I just assumed she would be. And when she laughed, when she said, you seriously thought, she wasn't being cruel. She was being herself. I just hadn't seen her clearly until that moment. I started writing again. Not just thoughts, but stories. Fiction, mostly. Characters who struggled, who failed, who found strength in unexpected places. I didn't share them. I didn't post them online. I just wrote. It became a ritual. Wake up, make coffee, write for an hour. It gave me structure. It gave me purpose. Months passed. My hair started to grow back. My strength returned. The doctors said the treatment was working. The tumors had shrunk. I wasn't out of the woods, but I was moving in the right direction. I started thinking about the future again, not in vague terms, but in specifics. I wanted to travel. I wanted to adopt a dog. I wanted to meet someone who didn't flinch at the word hospital. I joined a support group. Not because I needed support, but because I wanted to offer it. I met people who'd been through worse. People who'd lost limbs, lost partners, lost everything. And yet they showed up. They laughed. They told stories. They lived. It was humbling. It was grounding. It reminded me that pain isn't unique. That everyone carries something. One night, after a meeting, I walked home with a woman named Claire. She was in remission. Had 2 kids. Worked as a nurse. We talked about books, about music, about the weird things people say when they don't know how to talk about illness. She was kind. She didn't ask about Rachel. She didn't ask about the past. She just listened. And I found myself telling her things I hadn't told anyone. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. We started seeing each other. Slowly. Carefully. No big declarations. No promises. Just time. Just presence. She came with me to appointments. She sat with me during scans. She didn't flinch. She didn't run. She didn't laugh when I said I was scared. She just held my hand. One day, I told her about Rachel. About the phone call. About the laugh. About the silence that followed. She didn't react. Didn't say anything cruel or comforting. Just nodded. Then she said something I'll never forget. Some people are built for sunshine. Others are built for storms. It stuck with me. Not because it was poetic, but because it was true. Rachel was sunshine. She lit up rooms, made people feel good, lived for the highs. But when the storm came, she vanished. Claire was the opposite. Steady, quiet, present. She didn't need the spotlight. She just needed to be needed. I don't hate Rachel. I don't wish her harm. I hope Miami was everything she wanted. I hope she found someone who fits her world. But I'm not in that world anymore. I'm in a different one. One where love isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about showing up. It's about staying when things get hard. It's about holding someone's hand in a hospital room and saying, I'm here. I still write. I still walk. I still go to therapy. The cancer might come back. It might not. I don't know. But I'm not afraid anymore. I've faced the worst and come out the other side. Not untouched, but stronger. Wiser. More aware. And when I think back to that moment, when she laughed, when she said those words, I don't feel pain. I feel gratitude. Because that laugh, that sentence, that absence, it showed me who she was. And more importantly, it showed me who I am. I'm not the man waiting for someone to choose me. I'm the man who chooses himself. Every day. In every way. And that, I've learned, is enough. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this.